Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Quick question for you all out there. Are Apple devices as secure as we once believed? Well, today I'm going to be joined by Jaron Bradley, Director of Threat Labs at Jamf, and we're going to discuss the significant shift in the cybersecurity landscape for Apple technologies. As these devices become staples in our professional lives, from iPhones to iPads to MacBooks and iMacs in the workplace, they're also becoming bigger targets for sophisticated cyber threats. So I've invited Jason onto the podcast today to shed light on how the perceived invulnerability, the invincibility of Apple products is a bit of a myth of the past, and also explore some of the new challenges that are emerging as a result. Now, Jaron is currently on vacation in Norway, but he still took time out of that vacation to sit down and talk with me after a long flight from the US. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Norway, where Jaron Bradley, Director of Threat Labs at Jamf, is ready to talk about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Jaron Bradley. I'm the director on the Threat Labs team at Jamf, where we research new ways to protect the Apple ecosystem and keep it safe from cyber threats. So Jamf Protect is a product that we offer, and it does just that. So the team I run is responsible for essentially finding and applying threat intel and detections that feed the product.
Well, it's a huge pleasure to have you on the podcast. So much I want to talk about today. And every day we talk about a different topic here, try and demystify it. And to set the scene for our conversation today, can you tell me a little about the shift in the nature of malware and how that's affecting Apple devices in recent years? Because for a long time, many Apple fans have been almost cocky and arrogant. Well, I think, hey, well, that doesn't bother me. I'm a OS guy. We don't get affected by that stuff. But of course, that is not true. So how has the threat landscape evolved from adware to more severe threats like trojans, etc.? What are you seeing here?
You're not wrong, and agree fully with what you're saying in terms of there's even been a level of cockiness in terms of, we don't get viruses on this side, right? We did kind of start with adware on the Mac OS side, and we saw a lot of it. We still do, in fact, and adware itself is, in some ways, because it's been at it so long on Mac OS, some of the malware creators or adware creators are very effective still at getting people to install and click on what they're going for. Flash downloaders, that's been gone for ages, but people still think when they visit a site that has a video on it, they have to install Flash, and they'll click on whatever instructs them to do so, right? Adware has continued to be really prominent, but yes, you're right in saying that we've certainly shifted towards more things like APT-based attacks. A lot of actors, when they're writing their malware, they'll use a language that can easily build multi-platform, and they'll build something that'll run on the Mac operating system. The 3CX hack from last year's kind of a great example. That chain attack where they kind of came in, the attackers came in and infected the software. Essentially, they backdoored the Mac OS product as well, right? Which tells you that threat actors are seeing value in going out of their way to also attack the Mac OS ecosystem. Lazarus Group, North Korean attacker. We've seen numerous attacks from them and a lot of malware development for them focused on the Mac OS ecosystem. Essentially, you figure you got a lot of people looking into or building tools. A lot of developer systems are running Macs now, and developer systems are usually loaded with with all kinds of access to different machines and stuff like that. So it's certainly becoming more popular.
Yeah, and I think it was, it might have been last year, I had Lynn Lamb, the CIO of Jamf Software. She was talking to me about the root causes of tension between IT and security teams. And with Apple devices becoming ubiquitous in work environments now, what are some of the common misconceptions that companies still hold about this the security of these devices? Because there's tension there too, isn't there?
Yeah, and that comes back even to what you were already kind of stating. People just have this outlook on it that is invincible, right? We still kind of remember the Mac versus PC commercials, and I'm a Mac, I don't get viruses, right? Yeah. And back then, that might have only been a slight stretch, and overall, they were kind of being fairly honest. But right now, with the market share kind of shifting a little bit, I think we're somewhere around 15% for the Mac OS ecosystems, or 15% on laptops being Macs. That's a pretty big percentage, right? So when you think about as an attack, like from the attacker perspective, like if you're setting up some very large attack, then you're gonna miss out on 15% of the computers, or there's a 15% chance that your malware won't detonate on a victim system, right? Like that's a fairly high chance if you're putting in a lot of work to try and social engineer somebody. So I think they're just coming in. Actors are coming in just more ready for the fact that their user that they're after might be running the Mac OS ecosystem.
And just to bring to life what we're talking about here, do you have any specific examples of these threats, and maybe explain the potential impact on organizations? Because there will be some people out there that are unaware of the kind of threats we're talking about. So are there any examples you can share?
Lately, in the macOS world, we've been seeing a lot of info stealers. In other words, like Atomic Stealer is a big name, both on the Windows side and on the Mac side. Actors are selling it kind of on the black market for like some couple grand a month, I believe was the last report, and users can buy it embedded into malware. We've seen it distributed. We did a recent blog post on Atomic Stealer being distributed through Google-sponsored links. When people go out looking for, a quick download for an app they're in search of, they get brought to a fake website that looks nearly identical, and they end up installing what is instead an info stealer instead of the app they're looking for. And that kind of goes through their keychain. It puts their keychain into a zip file along with some of their cookies from their different browsers. Basically, the goal of it is to steal a ton of passwords. And by the looks of it, ultimately use a lot of those passwords to try and get access to any maybe crypto wallets that they might own. So the crypto world is under heavy attack, I would say, on the Mac OS side. There's certainly a lot of malware after that, and a lot of APT actors after users' Bitcoin wallets and et cetera.
And given the growing concerns around Mac malware, and some of those concerns we've probably just triggered and set off light bulb moments, what steps should organizations be taking to enhance their cybersecurity measures, specifically for those Apple devices, in particular in digital and creative teams, etc., in an organization? What should those businesses and IT departments be doing?
Yeah, I think ultimately the answer to that comes back to just caring for your Macs in the same manner that you care for your Windows systems, right? Don't stop treating them like they're invincible just because they're not Windows systems. For those with dedicated security teams, right? Train your analysts, train your SOCs, whatever it is to analyze Macs and how to look at that data. Don't just have the one Mac guy, right? This is a numerous thing that we see at a lot of different companies with a security team, is that everybody's kind of focused on the Windows environment. If something shows up Mac, they pass it to the one Mac guy that actually knows what the operating system kind of looks like and how it should behave. I've experienced this myself. In past jobs and past roles, and really we should all be learning that kind of skill set. So we know what we're looking at.
100%. I've been in IT departments. I've been in support teams many, many years ago. When the CEO or somebody brings the Mac out, you'd see the look of terror on all the IT techies' faces, because there's always only one Mac guy, isn't there? No matter where you are.
It's true. There is, yeah, and due to the market share in the past, again, like it's been kind of what's required, but with things changing so much, I think we're going to start to see more attacks on the Mac side. An example I give of that quite a bit, because it's a very easy example to look on, is if you've ever read the book The Cuckoo's Egg by Cliff Stoll.
Yeah.
So it kind of documents one of the earliest APT attacks, right? Maybe not called APT back then, but against the Berkeley network, where a threat actor was coming in and stealing a ton of research from the Berkeley network. And ultimately that was all done on BSD systems, right? The Berkeley distribution of Unix at the time. That's not because Berkeley, BSD was more insecure than everything else. It's just because it's what like the whole school was running, right? So that's kind of a prime example that it comes down to the market share and what users are running. It's not attackers will always find new ways to go after systems. It's just about what systems those users are running. So it's kind of my go-to example.
And another phrase we hear a lot of at the moment is cyber hygiene. And just to make sure we don't leave anyone behind here, can you just expand on the concept of cyber hygiene and in particular some of the challenges it faces when you come across mobile devices and Macs in corporate settings? Because we've come a long way from those BYOD days now, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. Even on Mac, any Apple device, honestly, even if it's not, a laptop, a lot of it is just some of the same knowledge, some of the same Windows knowledge that we've always had. Don't click on the links you don't trust. On the Mac side and on the Apple side, use the App Store if possible. That's kind of a big check mark one, right? Like Apple is in some manner. We don't have the knowledge of what all goes into vetting apps, but it requires, various security checks in order to get your app on the App Store, sandboxing, other things like that. So the App Store, even though, it's not impossible for malware to make its way to the App Store, it's significantly less likely than if you go download an application from the internet. On the iPhone side, we're now going to, we're going to have access to the side loading of apps could be a thing. The App Store is there. It's vetted. Apple has security checks that they run on some of those apps. So, that's kind of an easy one on that side. Don't download apps, sent to you from users you just met. We've seen, actors also get onto systems by convincing someone, this is the same info stealer I was speaking to earlier. We've seen those actors get on systems by convincing someone to join them on a podcast, believe it or not, right? And then in order to join them, they send an invite at the last minute saying, this is the XYZ software that we use. Can you please jump in the meeting? And then the user installs that software and it's not that software at all, right? So I'm glad I'm speaking with you right now, and I know it's not a heist, but so yeah, don't download apps that somebody sends you on a link, especially because they can be really convincing. Those social engineering schemes can be very convincing. And then don't approve, every pop-up window without knowing what it is on Mac. There's a lot of security features built in that are there to tell you, hey, we don't know who built this app. Don't open it, or hey, here's a prompt for your password. Don't just type in your password because some app asked you to, right? Things like that. Things that are very lean heavily on the social engineering side, I would argue. It's just good to train users up on what is the logical thing to do on Mac.
Yeah, and education plays such a huge part in that, and informing users that they shouldn't be clicking on those links, being more vigilant, not downloading apps from a link they're seeing an email. But for the business departments, the IT departments, are there any other proactive strategies that organisations might be able to implement to guard against these advanced malware attacks that are increasingly targeting Mac environments? Any strategies that you're seeing that might work?
Yeah, I think overall you want to install software for Mac that is going to be, that is going to help you in that fight, right? Like, all in all, again, obviously helps a lot if you have a security team that can be dedicated to these types of tasks. But software that's going to help you in finding the malicious items that enter something that's Mac specific. Generally, there are a lot of vendors out there writing software that has a Mac component, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are all, I'm not saying that's all bad software. It's just the general overall focus is on Windows, and Apple devices often fall to the wayside. And they're just kind of a port of, oh, well, this works for Windows, so this should work, if we take the same approach for Mac. And there's some truth to that, and there's some places where that falls flat, I would argue. So finding software that's written for Mac and designed to protect your Apple devices.
And as they would say here in the UK, helping businesses protect their Mac estate is your bread and butter, ultimately. So how do you at Jamf help organizations protect those Apple devices, and what kind of tools or services do you guys offer that maybe address these and even more complex cyber threats that we haven't got time to go into great length today?
Yeah, definitely. We put a ton of focus in that area. Obviously, we're an Apple shop. It is our only focus in reality when it comes to much of what we're building on the security side. So Jamf Protect, as I kind of mentioned earlier, that's our threat prevention, behavioral detections, telemetry, for providing events that you can threat hunt through, along with device compliance management. A lot of companies, compliance management can be another thing that companies can do. Just make sure that the standards that are out there for kind of your most secure settings for your Mac, making sure those are kind of enabled and set accordingly. We offer Jamf Connect, that's this zero trust auth and identity management, and even a secure proxy to kind of keep you off some zero-day phishing sites and stuff like that. And then Jamf Jet P is one of our more recents that's focused on keeping state-sponsored attacks off of Apple iPhones, maybe more targeted in terms of protecting your execs or people where there might be where you might have threats existing on the iOS platform. Really, the only ones right now kind of going after iOS are a lot of the really big nation states that have deep pockets enough to buy 0 days or malware. The Pegasus malware, really big attacks, right? And so us trying to protect against that on iOS as well, to help our customers out.
Well, a huge thank you for taking time out of your vacation while you're in Norway at the moment to share some of these insights, shine a light on this topic. It is so important. And I suspect, as you have been doing a little bit of traveling, you're going to be carrying a pair of noise-cancelling headphones and maybe a book. So I'm going to ask you to leave one final gift to everyone listening, and that is a book that you would recommend that we can add to our Amazon wish list, or a song that we can add to our Spotify playlist. All I'll ask is, what would you like to add and why?
Yeah, I'll go the book route, mostly because right now I happen to be right on theme with this, as I'm currently going through the Steve Jobs biography, which kind of focuses on the history of Apple and the creation of Apple, and the journey Steve Jobs went on from creating it to kind of falling off of it to coming back. And it is a really interesting story. I think throughout it, there is a number of ways in which Steve Jobs treats people, in which I hope I have some different management skills in that. But it is truly an interesting story to kind of go through and read about just the history of Apple. So, yeah,
great choice. I'm going to add it to our Amazon wish list. And I've had John Scully on here once. He was telling me that story where I think Steve Jobs came and he said, "Do you want to sit here and sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or come and change the world with me?" It makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. We also had Guy Kawasaki on, revealing some stories behind the scene as well. So yeah, great choice. And for anyone listening just wanting to find out more information about Jamf, about how you might be able to help and further explore this, or maybe even contact you or your team, where's the best starting point for everything?
Yeah, you can check out jamf.com to kind of view what we're up to and what we create. Jamf has a reputation of being an MDM company, which of course we are, and we help people manage their Apple devices. But the security offering, obviously, like I said, we have a whole slew of things there. So you can check out that and what we're up to there. You can also look up the Threat Labs Jamf blog. That's an easy one to just Google and find. You can see what we've been up to and kind of some of the threats that we've been blogging about that have gotten up there. Lastly, I also on the side blog a fair bit on it's called themittenmac.com. I just do some personal blogging there about internals, the internal operating system of Mac OS and how it operates, and then tie that into security threats too.
Awesome. Well, I'll get links added to everything you mentioned there to the show notes, so everyone listening can find out more information. And I learned so much today. As you said, not so long ago, the myth of Apple's security and invincibility was as strong as ever. But Apple threats are becoming more sophisticated, more diverse, and many organisations are sadly not prepared for those risks. So thank you so much for taking the time to come out here, sit down with me, talk about the changes seen in Mac malware, the trojans, ransomware, and how it's actually impacting organisations' cyber risk and the abysmal state of cyber hygiene in some places. But after shining a light on it today, I'm hopeful that can change. And a big thank you for helping in that fight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I think we uncovered some critical insights today about the evolving threats to Apple devices with Jaron Bradley. And it's clear that security landscape is changing. And as a result, our approach must adapt swiftly to keep pace with that. But the big question is, what steps will you take to enhance the cyber resilience of your Apple devices, whether it's in your home or the workplace? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we talked about today, such as the shift in the Apple device threat landscape, misconceptions about Mac security, improving Mac cyber hygiene, and what solutions or strategies you're putting in place. Please let me know. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just @Neil C. Hughes. Let's keep this conversation going. I hope you learned a few things from today's conversation. I certainly did, and I'm going to try and learn a few. I will try and learn a few other things about a completely different topic tomorrow. But thank you for listening today, and until next time, don't be a stranger.